Hi, I'm Rick, and this is Talk Tonic here at RetailNOW 2024. I'm joined today by Jeff Riley, a good friend of mine from the industry. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Been hanging around Jeff for quite a few years now, about 20. And I think the thing we'll kick off with today is you've been in and around the industry for a long time. You've worked for big companies. You've worked for Microsoft, right? You've worked for small companies, and now you work for a small to medium, I would call it, company. Tell me what you've seen in our industry over the past maybe 5 or 10 years as far as small companies versus big companies and how they interact with the ownership and the entrepreneurs that are in this business.
You know, I've seen kind of a wave pattern, like an ocean tide of venture capital chasing opportunities to go after the retail industry. You know, zooming out and looking at the retail industry, it's about 13% of the American economy in the U.S. And you extrapolate that around the world, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. You talk about the need for automation, the need to stay competitive amongst retail changing trends. And there's no shortage of creative and talented minds, both in small business and in big business, going after that prize. So we've seen lots of capital be invested in the market. We've seen lots of entrepreneurs with sweat, blood, and tears going after the opportunity, and lots of people with passion. The story changes subtly with new technology every year. There's lots of failed starts and a lot of curiosity around new technologies, but as we know with the technology adoption curve, it takes a while to get that right and to get mainstream adoption. And the patterns for adoption differ from enterprise-level retailers to SMB, mom-and-pop shops. But here at the RSPA, what I've seen is a lot of talented independent business folks, entrepreneurs, as well as some large companies in the supply chain for hardware and payments, really work together effectively to bring solutions to retailers.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Where some of these, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday with Anthony Presley, who you know very well, I'm sure. And one of the things we were talking about was, VC versus PE. A lot of times these private equity companies come in with a consolidation mindset. And what that usually looks like is, let's squeeze all of the juice out of the orange, right? And so what they do is they put things together and then they gut it at a certain level. And that level is usually service, right? So you see companies that were relying on somebody who now doesn't have the level of service that they used to. And I think when we're talking about, in your case, retail merchants, in our case, hospitality merchants, dealing through resellers, it becomes sort of a layer of, the thing I've heard recently a lot is, when's the rug going to get ripped out from under me and what can I do to protect myself from that? And so I don't know that you've seen quite the consolidation on your side of the fence in retail, but I'm sure you've been made well aware of it on the hospitality side. So where do you see that going in the next few years? Do you think there'll be a bit of a stabilization based on VC and PE being in a different place than they were 5 years ago?
I don't.
No?
I don't. I see more of the same. This ocean tide pattern, it just continues because there will always be capital that wants to find a place to accumulate wealth. That doesn't change over time. What does change is the players. And what's sad, your point about the rug being pulled out, what's sad is the old joke is, oh, they got acquired. Boy, that's the end of that.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way. It's not always that way. Sometimes companies get acquired and good things happen to the people and the products. And that they're all different stories for what happens. I was CEO of Dinerware and Heartland came and acquired Dinerware in 2015. Well, there's some people from Dinerware that are still at Heartland. Most have moved on. The product has kind of been put on the back shelf. One thing that you learn when going through a merger and acquisition event is change of control really does mean change of control.
Absolutely. And we see that, I think it's the spot that people are most passionate is when they are the creator, right? When they created the product and it's their baby and somebody else takes it over, very, very, very rarely does the founder or the creator of that original tech product feel like they were done right in the transaction. Being done right financially means that you probably lose a bit of control over or could lose control over it. So But it has been interesting to watch. And, I see all levels, from some of the consulting I've done over the past few years, you see startups that are really tiny and, those are the ones. Failure is imminent, right? They've got to figure out how not to fail. And if they're going to fail quickly and do the next thing.
That's right.
And then the other side of it is they want to, try to get some money, but without giving up too much of the equity in the business. It is amazing how in our ecosystem, there are companies that are in the billions, and then there are companies that are in the not even quite to 100,000 in revenue, but could scale over the course of the next couple of years.
Yeah, and it's understandable because the entrepreneur who's the creator and the more often empathetic and passionate soul, with customers and partners, has built something special. And that something that's special is the reason that the bigger company with more money is interested in the first place.
Right.
And they see the opportunity as, let's take what they've done that's special and optimize it and maximize it and wring every dollar out of it to our selfish gain. And that's the phenomena that creates the, oh, well, too bad. So long. It was nice knowing them.
Complete animosity, and then it's all over. Recently, there's been a ton of consolidation in the tire market, in the tire shop industry.
Yeah.
I got caught in it where, one day I picked up the phone and I called my local tire shop and I said, hey, I got a nail in a tire and I need to get it done, get it fixed quickly. Can you take me right now? And the guy said, yeah, sure, bring it right over. And so I drove over. And the guy's like, we can't get you in the next 8 hours. And as the irate customer, I want to know who I talk to. I talked to somebody, and the guy's like, yeah, you talk to our call center in New York. They don't route the local calls to us. They route them to the call center. Now, when I call them, I say, hi, are you at the call center in New York or are you at my local shop? Right? Because I don't trust it anymore. But that's what private equity does.
That's a great example.
They optimize, but they absolutely obliterate the customer experience.
That's absolutely right.
And in our industry, what that does to the reseller, the man in the middle, because I've been there, is, now you've created animosity with my customer because you can't do what I need you to do.
Yeah.
But it's my customer. I'm taking all the pain, right? And so I think that's what we've seen with a lot of these resellers who are like, listen, I don't have a problem that XYZ Payments bought my point of sale company. What I have the pain is that they cannot deliver. They're not doing what they need to do. Because they're trying to wring every dollar out of it. But it'll be interesting to see. The next few years will probably, like you say, it'll probably be much like the last few, I think. You've been in and around the RSPA for a very long time now.
I have about 20 years.
Yeah. And recently you've joined the board and you're incoming chair.
I am.
In 2 weeks, something like that?
That's right. 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I was explaining yesterday how back when I joined the RSPA in 2004, I didn't know any of those people that were on the stage. I didn't know anybody.
You and I were in the same boat. That's about the same time I joined.
Right. And it was like, these people are awesome. I want to meet them and learn them. And I started doing that. I started networking with them and understanding who they were. And I said, now it's the opposite end of the spectrum where I look up on that stage and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know every single one of them. Right.
Yeah.
And having known Brett Bennett for 25 years now from the RMS world, he's outgoing chair. And now another friend of mine comes in. So I'm
passing of the baton.
I'm excited to hear what your initiatives are and the things that you can share with us here. I'm sure a lot of it.
Well, RSPA is an interesting organization because they really have taken membership representation to a new level because they've been around for 75 years in one form or another. They really understand how to serve members and how to represent members' interests amongst the board. The board is made up of members. And it's a fine staff they have that works hard, that's dedicated and paid for by the membership fees. And so the board works really closely with the staff to deliver the RSPA experience. But I just, I don't want to sound trite or cliche here, but being around for 20 years and getting so much out of it myself, when I was asked, I was honored, and I took the opportunity to say, yeah, I'd love to serve in that role. So my initiatives are to represent the members. I don't have, I think Michel Seurat was chair before Brett, and he had some vision, and it was all about RSPA 3.0. And I said, what's RSPA 3.0? Because I think if you say, where are you today and where do you want to be, you package that into a project and a set of initiatives, and that's great. That direction helps the community and the committees and the members really understand the road plan that exists for the organization. And so I look forward to digging into. I've been serving on the board for a year, so I know what those initiatives are. I look forward to continuing that and just being a good leader by listening and representing what I hear in the room. We had an initiative that we discussed in the board this weekend, and I was pretty excited about it, but it turned out most of the board wasn't very excited about it. And I think there was a little bit of nervous tension there around what's going to happen. Well, I'm not the chair yet, but in 2 weeks I will be. So I can feel there was, oh no, this isn't going Jeff's way. What's going to happen? And I said, listen, guys and gals, I am going to be chair. And in that role, it's my duty to take what I hear and lead the organization in that direction, not with my own agenda.
Yeah, we're not iron fist here.
So I voted no. Let's not do this. If something doesn't have unanimous or majority support, let's not. We already have so many things we know we need to do. Let's not try to do something that we're not clear that we need to do.
Right. And I'll give a huge shout out to Jim Roddy for what he's done. We all knew Jim for many years before he joined the RSPA, as president, I should say. And, when I was on the board, it was during a time of a little bit of turmoil. John Kirk had come in. John Kirk's a great guy. Great. I learned a lot from John Kirk. There's nobody in the world with more enthusiasm than John Kirk. But when Jim came in, I could sense that he kind of had this, let's go away a little bit from the old way and let's go a little bit broader out there in the world, because there's more than just hospitality and retail, and we're that line and that's it. And so I think that's benefited it great. You see more, some bigger manufacturers, some people that were on the fringe. One of the things recurring theme lately for me has been traditional point of sale dealer, the traditional VAR, as it were. They're still around. They're still doing their thing. They've had to become more of an MSP, right? And what I'm finding is there's a lot of managed services providers out there who they haven't touched point of sale yet, but they already do networking, ATMs, phone systems, voice over IP. They do camera systems, all of that in restaurants, right? They run the whole backbone of the restaurant. And sometimes they do payments as well. They do ATMs, they do payments. So the only thing they're missing is the point of sale. And they're starting to realize that. They're starting to say, whereas the point of sale guys 10 years ago said, I need to add more to my offering so that I can be stickier with the restaurant, the MSPs are saying, I might want to dabble in point of sale, right?
Yeah.
And figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a crossover into a little bit broader of a world than there was 5 or 10 years ago.
I think one thing is true about small business entrepreneurs. We're all trying to find the light. And that light is defined by the customer and the customer's needs. And so I think it's inevitable that there's going to be, cross fusion of different capabilities and different service offerings that happen across MSPs and VARs that we already have a hard time describing them as such anymore.
I appreciate it, Jeff. It was great having you here today on Talk Tonic. Look forward to hanging out with you at some more shows and maybe even the RMH conference.
Rick, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jeff.